We're getting reports out there that truckers have blocked the port of Oakland in Los Angeles area. Of course, we have three main ports in the Los Angeles area. Combined, they unload a ridiculous amount of goods. Most of the stuff that comes from Dragon Country comes through those ports. But we see the war on self-sufficient freedom lovers out there across the nation, across the world, and particularly in our Socialist Republic of California. So, just for context, once again, as we talk about these truckers blockading the port over there, the reason why they're doing this is because in their infinite wisdom, the government over there in California decided that with enough money given to them by unions, that no one should be allowed to have their own small businesses, because then they can't be part of a union. And so the owner-operators, truckers out there that own their own rigs, who get to choose a lot of the decisions that they make, choose who they work for, what they haul, what hours they work for sometimes as well, they are being forced to be employees at the whim of employers once again, because the AB5 bill out there that was passed earlier this year is going to be applied to truckers as well. So basically, the thing that was going after Uber drivers and Lyft drivers to make sure that their companies are treating them as employees, which at first sounds like that's doing those workers a solid, right? But the real nefarious thing is that it's not about protecting those workers at all. It's about boosting enrollment in unions so that more money can get into the right coffers. If you're part of a union, you have to pay your dues. And they don't like the idea that all these owner-operator truck drivers are not able to be unionized because they own their own business effectively. So what happened here was that 400 truck drivers blockaded the three main entrances to the Port of Oakland, all three terminals. They were not allowing trucks through, and this is representative of the 70,000 owner-operators over there in California who have now been declared illegal operators overnight. And so the truckers were doing some blockading of the terminals in the Port of LA last week, but this week they actually succeeded in blocking all three terminals of the Port of Oakland, making a point. Even the union longshoremen, I believe, inside there refused to cross the picket line, as they were calling it. So basically, even the union workers saw this as a strike, and in solidarity would refuse to go through to work. The Port of Oakland actually closed down overnight operations because trucks were not being able to get through, so they told all the workers that were going to be coming in for the next shift not to come in, and the port was essentially shut down. Apparently that the Port of Oakland is now back in operation. After this protest, it was only for one day as of now. But we'll see if this picks up again, if the owner-operators continue to be ignored, whether they will make themselves heard much more than they have already. So, of course, the AB5 was pushed through by the unions and the Teamsters. They were forcing the bill through. And they want everyone to be unionized so they can pay union dues. And that just brings us to the bigger question here, right? The bigger question is, why does it seem like everything that is passed by the government is forcing us into these in a state of dependency? They're destroying the middle class. They don't want you to be a high wage earner who is an employee. They don't want you to own your own small business. They want to make sure that you are either the ultra wealthy, if you're not a member of that, nor am I, that you never have the chance of becoming us. They're really trying to protect the ultra wealthy from having to have any riffraff actually get up there or any of their wealth be spent. Middle class is being destroyed and everyone's being shoved down into the working poor. And that seems to be the main premise of everything that's going forward. All these new deals and green deals and everything like that. It's all about pushing people down into the working class so that they can be controlled and so that they have to live hand to mouth all the time. And I don't know about you, but that's just infuriating. The fact that they would go after small businessmen, small businesswomen, and try to destroy their livelihoods against their will so that they can just fluff up union membership. They're doing it to protect these people, but you can clearly see by the protests that these people do not want to be protected like this. This isn't their owners, the owners of businesses that are contracting out to them out there protesting. Really, it's no skin off their nose. They can just turn their corporation around so that they have employees instead of independent contractors. Okay, they have to pay a little bit more to do payroll taxes and stuff like that. But really, when it comes down to it, these owner-operators are going to lose a lot of autonomy, a lot of freedom, and they're going to be forced into the system that we all know. I mean, ask yourself the question, which would you rather be? If we were to give you an equivalent wage, whatever you think is a fair wage for you as an employee, or same amount of money as after all the deductions and everything like that as a self-employed person. I think that anyone with half a brain would take the being self-employed, right? Where you actually have control over your destiny as opposed to being an employee that, you could walk in one day and there's the pink slip sitting on your desk. Or as you walk in to punch in on the clock, there's the pink slip next to your punch card, or maybe a little thing saying, come into the office and talk with the management here before you clock in. And you go in there and they tell you that your services are no longer needed. Leave. If you've ever been fired or you've ever been laid off, you ever experienced that or know people who have experienced that, especially people who kind of saw it coming over time. Their business was struggling or they just kind of realized that there was another round of layoffs coming and they just kind of knew it was coming. What kind of job security is that when you know that you can go from having a paycheck that's giving you this much money down to zero, just like that? Whereas with a small business, times can be slow. You can choose to work for less money and kind of make ends meet until you can make a shift or a pivot or a change where you actually have control, because if you own a small business, you're never going to fire yourself. You may resign, but you're never going to fire yourself. And yet that's what's being denied the workers here. And as they go after farmers around the world, it's just anyone who is remotely self-sufficient, self-sustaining, or freedom-oriented. I think that as Americans, when we think about freedom-oriented people, we think of three groups of people, don't we? We think of farmers, we think of truckers, and the last class is we think of soldiers, right? Whether soldiers are really free, they're not really free at all, but they fight for freedom. And when you think about the epitome of Americans, those are the three classes you kind of think of, and they've been going after the soldiers for a while. That if you don't submit to all the crazy wackiness that they're shoving down everyone's throats, then you're out of there. They've been purging the military for quite a while. Then they've been going after farmers more recently, doing this whole nitrogen thing and attacking their fertilizer, their fuel, attacking their water. Everything that a farmer needs, they're going after. They're making it hard to get chips for their tractors. They're making it hard to get replacement parts for their tractors. Everything that a farmer needs, it seems like, is being regulated and attacked systematically in order to drive as many farmers out of business as possible. Because we can't have freedom here, because if some people have freedom, then other people might get ideas, right? And then when, they've been starting to crack down on truckers. Not only this with what's happening in California, but with diesel prices going up through the roof, and once again, chip shortages for machinery parts. We saw even earlier the DEF sensors. They were not able to get replacement DEF sensors, and so just rigs were being sidelined one after the next because they couldn't get the replacement parts for those things. And then just, if you know any truckers at all, and you've heard the stories of how trucking used to be with their logbooks, and then once they went to the automated logbooks, and they're forced to start logging everything. The computer system is like tracking everything that you're doing all the time. Nowadays, it's if you slam on the brakes a little too hard, the camera in the cab will record the previous, 15 or 30 seconds before the slamming on the brakes, so that someone can go over that and see if you're doing something you shouldn't have been doing. Just imagine that, having a camera on you all day long at your office desk, and then like if something goes wrong, they're going to just be able to look at all the video footage of everything that you were doing and second guess everything that you're doing. It's no wonder that so many truckers who are up there close to retirement age have just said, enough of this junk. I'm done with this. I don't want to put up with this anymore. And we're just seeing that across the board. Reasonable people are being pushed to the breaking point where they finally just say, I'm done with it. I'm done. If you want this mess, go ahead, you clean it up. And that's what we've done. A lot of people have done in the military. Military families are telling their kids, don't go in the military anymore, because it's not the military it used to be. I know that's been happening in other countries too, in Canada and Australia and elsewhere. The militaries out there are more about promoting rainbows and unicorns than they are about actually winning any kind of conflict. And if you're a freedom-minded person, if you're a homesteader, if you're realize they're coming for you next. If you're a freedom-minded person, a homesteader, whatever you may have that gives you any sort of leverage or power, food self-sufficiency, your gardening, your animals, your boomsticks, they're coming for all of that, because they cannot stand the idea of you not being completely dependent upon their system where they can control you. Somebody somewhere being free is the greatest fear of these folks. And you need to realize that if that describes you, they're coming for you. And so when we see them going after these other folks, they're coming for you next. So make sure you stand up and let your voice be heard in support of the truckers, the farmers, the military people out there, people who can't speak up for themselves because of fear of being fired or court-martialed or whatever. Make sure that you are speaking up for them. All right, folks, if you like this video, you might want to check out this video right here or up there. Otherwise, I will see you later. Steve Poplar, out.